All right, hi there. I'm going to be using Google Forms to make a questionnaire for my attendance. So I'm going to share my screen with you guys. All right, so right now we're in my Google Classroom. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up Forms. So if you need to get to it, if you've never been to it before, from your classroom, from your email, from your Google Drive, you want the waffle pattern for your Google Apps, and it's going to be the purple one for Forms. All right, so I'm going to have some options across the top. I want to start a new form. So since it's just attendance, it's not for a grade, I'm going to use just a plain blank form here. All right, so I'm going to title my form. Okay, it's going to be attendance. And for this week, we have attendance week, let's say 4/20 through 4/23. All right, and when I come up to the very tip top here, it still says untitled form. So I want to go ahead and if I click there, the title I just made will automatically pull in. But if you want to change it or anything like that, then you are able to change it without affecting the title you've made here. All right, so one of the first things I like to do is have the kids fill in their actual name. If you don't actually put a question for name, it will not pop up in the spreadsheet. What will pop up is their student email. So yes, their name will be in the email, but just so that I can find it easier, I like to have an actual box for their name. You can do two separate boxes if you want one for first and one for last. I tend to just put them in the same box. Now, it defaulted to short answer when I started putting in the information here. And since they are going to be typing in their name, I tend to leave it as short answer. Now, one of the big things you want to do with any kind of Google form is click the little toggle button and make it required. That way the kids have to answer it before they can leave this page. All right, now to add another question, you've got these options over here on the right. And the one that we want is the plus sign. And notice it says, little box there, add a question. So I'm going to add another question. I'm going to say this one is student ID. And again, I want to just leave it as short answer text. And then we can leave the response validation there has been added. So I'm going to leave that there. And again, make sure you toggle over the required. So I'm going to show you a couple of questions, just some examples of things that you can do on the Google form for attendance. I usually like to kind of treat them like a warm-up. Well, one of the questions I like to put on here, I'm going to leave this multiple choice, is I want them to be able to select their class period. It just makes it a little faster for me when I'm searching through these to find the specific ones that I need. So that way, if I'm only looking for first period responses, I can find it pretty fast. So there's first period, I have a second period, and then I have to skip third because I don't have a third, but I do have a fourth, and I have a fifth. I don't have a sixth, but I do have a seventh and an eighth. So those are all the different periods. And again, this is to show you the multiple choice. Now, in that little box, there are all different kinds of things you could do. You could turn this question into a checkbox. So that way they could just go and click the right period that they need, but they may accidentally click a second box and it might get a little confusing after that. So since I only want them to be able to pick one, I'm going to leave it as multiple choice. You do also have the option to create a drop down. So you could, when the students would see this, they would see the one little box, and when they click on it, all the options pop up. So again, there's just another option. So I'm going to go back and just leave this one as multiple choice. And again, make sure you do the toggle for required. All right, so I'm going to add just two more questions to this. You don't want to make it anything too long because remember, they only have a short amount of time that they're supposed to be on your class. So the next couple of questions I have are going to pertain to just something that I want to know about them. One question that I want to know from all of my students is, have you been able to watch the videos? Or in this case, the video notes. So I'm going to ask them a question. So you can get some certain responses here. Now, some of the others did this as well. It gives you suggestions. You could say add all, and you've got a yes, no, and a maybe. So I don't really want the maybe. So I'm going to go ahead and just hit that little X, and that'll delete that choice so they can either pick from yes or no. Now, some things that sometimes I have added a little more to this question. Have you been able to watch the videos? Maybe you can add another question like, are the videos useful to you? Or why not have you watched the videos? You can add a little more to that and then change it over to a free response. And then again, I'm going to go ahead and pick out required. All right, so I'm going to add one last question to show you another little option here. So my last question that I want to add on here is, how do you, you feel about our last topic, which was quadratic parent functions? Okay, I'm going to ask them a question about this. And this one, I am going to leave it. It automatically generated this question as what's called a linear scale. So these are the kind of questions where you can say on a scale of 1 to 5, and you have to specify to the kids what you want your numbers to be. So how do you feel about the quadratic parent functions? So on the scale, make sure you define what your numbers are. Now, I like to do the linear scale of just 1 to 5, but if you click those little down pointing triangles, you get all these different options. So you could do 1 to 10, you could do 1 to 3 if you really wanted. I'm going to leave it as 1 to 5. Okay, so again, on the scale, 1 meaning still don't understand. Don't understand at all. And 5, understand everything. Or maybe it's easy, it's hard, or it's easy. So however you would like to do these. So I'm going to take these same options and I'm going to put them down here in the labels. That way on the scale, the labels are on the picture as well. So again, number 1 stood for don't understand at all. And number 5, I understand everything. Or maybe again, it's easy. So I'm going to toggle over my required, and that's all really the questions that I want to do. So as you can see, there's tons of different options here that you can play around with for the different kinds of questions you might want to try out. Now, when you're ready and you think that you're completed, I recommend you go ahead and click on the eyeball that's up here at the top. Check and see what it looks like. So check preview. And then you can see exactly what the kids are going to see, where they have their first name and last name, student ID, the class period, the yes, no, and then there's the idea of the linear scale, and then the kids can hit submit when you're done. So that is the preview. So I'm going to close that. Now, one thing I like to check when you are looking at these attendance forms, in your little gear, the settings is where you can change how you want the kids to see. Since this is attendance, I like the kids to only really be able to do one response. So I'm going to check that box. So when that box is checked, I don't want them to be able to submit it after they're done. And I'm not too worried about them seeing the summary chart. I do want them to collect email addresses just in case. Now I'm going to check out presentation. I like to give the kids the progress bar so that way they can see kind of if they're almost done with it or not. Shuffle question order. I don't want to shuffle my questions. You can if you want, but I want my name to be my first question and my student ID to be the second. So I don't want to shuffle these up. Now there is another option here, show link to submit another response. Since I told it to limit to one response, that box is not checkable. You cannot click that box because you only told it to take one. Now, if I was going to turn this into a quiz, which I'm not because it's just attendance, I'm not going to toggle this over or anything. We'll see some of these other options later on during the Google quiz video. All right, so I'm good with what I've picked. I'm going to save that, and now it's good to go. Once the saving little word is up here is gone, it says all changes saved, you're good to go to share it. If you wanted to share it with another person at Northside, the 3 dots, you can add collaborators. You can type in their email addresses and share them to that Google form. But I'm just going to save this. I'm not going to share it with anybody. So there it is. There is your Google form for attendance. Please don't hesitate to ask me if you have any questions at all dealing with this Google form. Thanks, guys.